Hi, I hope everyone is doing great. This is going to be a video on the Early Beatles collection. And of course, the Early Beatles was released in 1965. It was the first American release in 1965 for the Beatles. And it is a repackaging of the Please Please Me album, which was the Beatles' first UK album. Now, there were 3 songs that were left off of the Early Beatles that were on Please Please Me. The first one, I Saw Her Standing There, which opens the Please Please Me album, was of course released on Meet the Beatles as the second track. And there were 2 other songs that were not included on the Early Beatles from Please Please Me. And those were Misery and There's a Place, which would find a home finally on a Capitol album in 1980. This was a rarities compilation that sort of compiled any songs that had not previously appeared on a Capitol album, or B-sides and rare takes and things like that. So this is the mono copy, and the cover of Early Beatles, of course, was the back cover of the Beatles for Sale album, which came out in late 1964. And Capitol also continued their tradition of titling their American releases with as little imagination as possible. You had Beatles 6, which would follow this one, and the Beatles' second album, Something New. So basically, I don't know who came up with the titles of these albums, but you know, just not much thought seems to have gone into it. And I mean, it is accurate. It was the Early Beatles. It was their first album, but nonetheless, I think they could have found something a little more exciting to title the album. I do not have the original inner sleeve on this one, but it, of course, is the Capitol rainbow label. This was the back cover with the previous Capitol releases. This is my stereo copy of the album. And again, I don't have the original inner sleeve on here, although sometimes what I'll do is, if I'm in a record shop and they have a bunch of cheap, like $1 records, I'll look for Capitol albums that were released around the same time period and buy one up if it has the inner sleeve that was also included in the Beatles album that I'm looking for. This was a 1970s repressing of this album. I'm sorry, this was 1980s. This is on the rainbow label, but in the 1980s, Capitol started putting out records with the rainbow label again, and so this is one of them. This is the cassette, and this is a 90s reissue. You can tell because it's got the clear case. And then this was the CD version, which was released as part of the Capitol Albums Volume 1. And this has the album both in mono and stereo. You can see they altered the back cover to include the mono track listing and the stereo track listing, which are completely the same, so I'm not sure why they felt the need to repeat the track list. And then this is the CD from the US albums box set. And this also has the album in both mono and stereo. And like all the other US albums, they have the original inner sleeve, a replica of that. and a reproduction of the Capitol Rainbow label. And so this was actually the third release of this material. The first one was obviously the Please Please Me album, but in America, as most of you probably know, this was released as Introducing the Beatles under the VJ label, and Capitol finally obtained the rights, or there was some sort of legal wrangling that went on in 1964. Capitol finally got the rights from VJ to release this material, and in 1965, early 1965, they put it out as this. Thanks for watching. I hope everyone is safe and well, and I always appreciate your comments, and take care.